Hello everyone, it's Michael, it's John, back again. And before we start, I just want to apologise. There has been a lack of videos lately. I'm sure you'll all agree with me and Michael that the break's doing us all the world of good from Everton. So we are enjoying not watching us at the minute. I probably speak for most people there. You know, it was no good for our mental health watching that week in, week out. But listen, we thought we'd do a video tonight because there has been some news come out today regarding Nottingham Forest and their PSR points deduction, let's just say, for looking into it. I don't know much about it. I don't think Michael's 100% on it. He was baffled today how they've come to the decision. Michael's more savvy with it than what I am. So I'm hoping Michael can sort of, you know, get his thoughts across on it and try and make heads or tail of how Forest have been given 4. When initially reading into it, it looks like they were given 8 and then they just changed it to 4. But yeah, theirs was to improve their playing squad. The rules got changed halfway through with our hearing and we ended up with 10 points, obviously reduced to 6. I can't see how they've come to this decision. I did say to Michael today, it's as if they're just plucking these numbers out the air and there's no basis for the deduction, the points deduction that they've given Forest and Everton. So, Michael, nice to see you again, mate, on the Blue Boys Network. Fill us in and the best you can on your thoughts on how they've come to these decisions regarding Everton and Nottingham Forest.
Firstly, I'd absolutely love to fill you in, but not in the way that you want. So I'll smash your head in. Anyway, yeah, as John alliterated to, guys, look, there hasn't been a lot of videos. It's been a nice break, so we've just had a bit of a chill time. We actually was going to come on tonight and do the Everton worst 11, but then obviously it all sort of started coming out about Forest points. So, look, I want to talk about first of all the statement, if we can. Forest statement, in my opinion, is much better than Everton's because it alludes to the top 6. It alludes to a small number of clubs, how it benefits. It alludes to the fact that the sporting advantage is given to them and that the Premier League is no longer competitive. They're actually putting their balls on the table.
You've gone in deep, Forest, haven't they? I think Everton haven't gone in that deep for the simple fact of the matter. We've got another charge hanging over our heads, so we're probably a bit scared that they've gone, right, you want to play like that, bang, here's another 6 points. But yeah. Forest have gone in balls deep, haven't they?
Yeah, and you know, they allude to the points, they allude about the competitiveness and all of that stuff. And look, I actually get their argument, their mitigation argument. You know, John alluded to the fact that they were given 8 points. It was what the Premier League was suggesting they get, which 8 points with a deduction of 2 for mitigation, which makes it 6, which essentially would have given them the same points deduction as Everton. Forest would argue that Everton's was over a 24-month period, Forest was over 12 months. Everton would argue that we're dealing with one situation each, so same amount of points apply. The whole thing's a mess. So me and John were having a conversation in the car earlier, and I said that I thought they would get 4 points. I've spoken to everyone that said I thought they'd get 4 points. And the reason was that when they outline the points deductions for Everton, they give us a 3-point deduction for the PSR breach in the first place. And then they give us another 3 points for essentially failing to provide information, or what they basically said at the time was that we were lying. And if you remember, that was something that Everton refuted massively, and they ended up changing their opinion on. Forest have put their hands up and said, look, we've supported you since day one. We've provided you the documentation. We've provided you with evidence. We understand we broke the rules, blah, 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 blah. So what they're saying is that Forest did a better job of presenting their case in the first place than Everton, essentially, and accepting plausibility and accepting liability for the situation that they've put themselves in. Now, there's no point sugarcoating it. When you look at the way that they've dealt with both cases, it just appears that they've had a more lenient panel look at their mitigation factors. Because look, I don't agree with points deductions full stop for these things. I just don't. Well, when you've got the fundamental of an Everton team that broke PSR because of a stadium, Forest that broke PSR because they signed 40 players and spent £250 million doing it, that's unfair. That's different. That is sporting advantage against a non-sporting advantage. The mitigation of Brennan Johnson from Forest, I actually agree with. Why would you sell a player for £30 million in June when you can get £50 million for him in July? And yes, I know Everton did with Richarlison, but that's because Everton are Everton. And we've tried to stick to the rules, and we've broken them by stadium costs because we're too nice. Whereas you've got Forest, who have gone ballsy, have gone aggressive, they've broke the rules, and funny enough, they've got a lesser penalty because maybe they're not so soft. So that's something to think about in all of this.
What are you saying there then? Do you think if Everton would have went and spent £250 million on 42 players and lied and whatever, would we have got lesser points deduction?
Well, Forest went and spent all that money, but they didn't lie. They were upfront about it, and that's why they got points deduction. Now, if I was Newcastle,
because we had 11 cases against us, I think it was, and we only won. Our argument was successful with 2 out of the 11, so we got done over for 9.
Yeah, but all of that is almost immaterial. The fact of the matter is, Everton Football Club failed to provide the information that the Premier League wanted. And at first, they said that they couldn't trust us, and it wasn't done in good faith. Everton refuted that, and that statement was pulled away the second time. The argument's not about any of that for me. The argument is about mitigation. Now, in the Forest case, they said that they had mitigating circumstances, so therefore they would take 2 points off the 6, which make it 4. Everton lost its main sponsor, its primary, naming rights, training ground, the branding was on the stadium. It lost USM's investment, which would have made us compliant with profit and sustainability. We lost that due to a war in Ukraine that Everton, funny enough, didn't start.
That's out of our control, isn't it?
So how can that not be taken as mitigating circumstances? And that's the bit that gets me, John. I'm not bothered about we got 6 and they got 4 and the fact that the Premier League are dodgy and all of this. We actually already
come to it, isn't it, more than anything?
Yeah, we know that. We know the Premier League are dodgy. We know they make things up as they go along. We know Masters doesn't have a clue. We know that the people in the top 6 absolutely love life to get away with it on the whole. I mean, I think some decisions actually this season have gone against certain teams. But on the whole, the top 6 are the top 6 because fundamentally they have become the richest 6 clubs. That is it. That is the fundamental. The most money is being pumped in by and to them clubs. More people watch them, which is unfortunate, but that is how it is. Now, what Forest have come out and said is absolutely bang on, that the PSR does not work for aspiring teams. Newcastle, Villa, Everton 3 years ago, Forest now, it doesn't work. There's no way of competing because, Forest, for example, had to sell Brennan Johnson, who is not a £50 million player, by the way. Absolutely not. But had to sell him to Spurs to comply with PSR. But because they wanted to get the most profitability, which surely makes more sense financially, to get the most money you can, they didn't sell him in June. And then Everton's argument, and Everton's fans' argument I've seen on Twitter is, well, we sold Richarlison. But that's because we're softer. That's because we didn't know what.
You probably have to sell a Wobie. Listen, I think my take of it before you carry on is financial fair play was brought in basically to help the big teams and to make the lesser teams in the Premier League weaker. Because let's be honest about it, Chelsea may have to do it, but that's because of the way they come in and spent money in like a kid in a toy shop. But when was the last time any of that top 6 team was in a position that Everton have been in and Nottingham Forest have been in, where we've had to sell players to sort of balance the books so we don't get hit with charges like this. It doesn't happen. And this is the thing. And I think this is what Forrest are alluding to here when they've had a dig at the top six in their statement. And it's exactly what I'm saying now. That top six don't have to sell players to get past PSR, whereas the other 14 teams in the league have to. And I've said this time and time again, the other 14 teams in this league are there to make the numbers up, are there to make the fixtures up. That's all we're there for. We know the big six are Sky, Premier League darlings. We know that. The Premier League needs them teams for the Sky, for the so-called apparent biggest league in the world. It's the shittest league in the world, the way it's treating the other 14 teams, in my opinion. It was brought in to help them teams, and it's blatantly, and it's pretty obvious now that that was the case. I've seen the word used again today more than I have over the last 2 or 3 months: corruption.
Yeah.
How is this fair? How is this not corruption? They're not even trying to sugarcoat it anymore with the statements they're putting out, the statement Forrest have had to put out, the way Everton have been treated. They're not even hiding the fact, they're not even masking it anymore.
No.
That the corruption in this league absolutely stinks.
Yeah. And look, you're spot on. And this is the thing. So, you know, these points deductions, they're not right. They don't work. The new rules that are coming in actually, in my opinion, make it even worse. They actually make the divide even worse. I mean, that's scandalous, but there you go. But John, the issue with English football and the Premier League and all sorts is just too many greedy teams. You know, we've just had it that the EFL, a deal for the 92 EFL clubs, hasn't been signed off because 10 Premier League clubs won't agree to it. I mean, it's greed. The money has absolutely destroyed this game. And what the Forest owner said today in his statement, or whoever said it, and look, as I've said to you before, this is not a case of Forest got away with it lightly, Everton got away with it. I'm not bothered. Forget the points. Just forget them for a second. What Forest actually did today is they stood up and they went, I'm a billionaire owner. If I choose to spend £250,000 on my playing squad, I will do it. I've tried to comply with your rules, but because of your stupidity trying to benefit the top six, I haven't. So whatever points deduction you think, give it to us. We don't agree. They'll go to appeal. I'm convinced Forest will go to appeal. It will then be reduced back down to 3. They'll get 1 point back. The whole system is a mess. And that appeal, by the way, will be, I think, the last day, the absolute last day of it is the 24th of May, which is after the season ends. So
they've got a week. I think they've got a week or 10 days to lodge an appeal.
It is shambolic. And by the way, they now need to do Everton's, and there's absolutely no way in hell Everton are going to accept another 4-point deduction after being nailed with 10 to get reduced to 6. They're not accepting our mitigating factor, which is no disrespect to Forest, but ours is absolutely not our fault. I mean, I don't know about you, but I have not sat in the Kremlin with Putin and gone, do you know what? Let's go to war tomorrow. Let's just start attacking Ukraine. And then the British government have to sanction all the owners, you know, Chelsea's owner, Farhad Mashiri because of Usmanov, blah, 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 blah. Everton had no power in that, yet that wasn't deemed a mitigating circumstance. I'm telling you now, I'm fairly convinced this Everton went to the High Court and fought that as a mitigating factor against Forest's case today. I'm pretty sure the Premier League would lose. I'm really confident that this Silk, the guy that we've got, if he has got something about him, he should be speaking to the club right now and going, you've got a case there. You've got an absolute case there.
Well, that leads me on to what I was going to bring up now. I mentioned this to you today when we were on the phone. Obviously, Everton Football Club today have seen obviously what's happened with Forest, and we've got one of the best silks in the business working on our behalf. He can really, really use this now for this hearing, for this second point deduction that we've got hanging over our head. Everything that's happened today, you can go to that appeal board now and absolutely take them to town, as you quite rightly say, if he's got anything about him, because Everton are paying him well. He could go in there now. He has so much evidence now, and he's got so much to work on after today's decision regards not Forest, that there's no way they will. I think they will, but there's no way they can really give us another points deduction. They'll do their best to give us another points deduction, and I think if they do, it'll probably be another 2 points, 1 point. You know, so that's what I was going to ask you then. Everton have got massive, well, they should have massive confidence in themselves that after today, we could take the Premier League to court, and Everton can have massive confidence that they would win that case.
I honestly think the guy that is doing our legal work, he obviously has to act with instruction from the club. So the club
Everton were shocked when they got given 4 point deduction today. So Everton and the Silk should work hand in hand now and go to town on this Premier League.
And I agree, but we know what Everton are like.
I think they've got to now. And you brought something up today. Do you know if it was a different owner in charge of the club, whether it be 777 or anybody else? Do you think it's down to the ownership and the board of the club that Everton are too soft? And do you think if we had someone like a 777 there, would they go in harder on the Premier League?
We've been too soft for 30 years. So if I'm being brutally honest, John,
can't be any worse.
We need whoever it is. It doesn't matter to me if it's 777, albeit full. I mean, it scares me, but if it is, or it's a new owner, someone has to nail the Premier League like they do. It's one of the other points I wanted to make was the Premier League fought to give a higher points deduction to Forest due to the fact that they've overspent. I think it was double what Everton had overspent. It was double.
9 million was it?
It was whatever it was double the amount. So therefore, they said, look, they need to be hit harder. So the Premier League, weirdly, were actually trying to give Forest a harsher punishment than Everton got from the Independent Commission.
Well, they tried to give out. Well, the Premier League suggested 12 points, didn't they, to the Commission?
Correct. But now they've seen the points that Everton got. They haven't appealed the points that Everton got. So they saw that. They saw what Forest, they give their idea to what Forest should get. The question I want to know is, how in that independent panel did it go from 8 to 4 when Everton's didn't go from 10 to 5? Again, based on mitigating circumstances. And no matter how you work it out, it doesn't make sense. If you say that Everton broke the rules and its PSR is 3 points for that, okay, fine. So you're saying that Forest broke PSR, fine, they get 3 points. You're telling me that simply because they provided paperwork and Everton didn't, that's worth 2 points. Also based on the fact that Everton, as far as every person I know understands, Everton had worked with the Premier League, signing off deals for every transfer window for the last 2 years. And you're telling me we didn't work with them and try and mitigate the circuit? It's the word for me. It's the mitigation for me. I can't get over that because Forest provided documents that Everton didn't or don't have or whatever, that they mitigated better than Everton. I just don't get it. The whole thing stinks to me. And look, I come up with the reason that I think that it happened. I've come up with the reason why I think the points have all of a sudden this season started happening. You know, financial fair play has been in place since I think 2013. Yet it's taken this season for it to start happening. It's just a bit weird. You know, it's taken a relegation battle, which includes a club that, and this is no disrespect to Luton, albeit I don't care. It's taken a club that nobody really expected to stay in the Premier League at the start, would probably finish rock bottom, to have a proper go at it. It looks like the bubble's burst and they're going to sink into the Championship. But you've then got Forest and Everton who are competing over this one place. You've got Brentford. It just feels like they're trying to keep it exciting, which is exactly why, and some people might disagree with this, and I get it because it's Liverpool. But I think Liverpool got shafted the other week when they should have had a penalty in the last minute with a foot in someone's chest. And that, again, gives them the opportunity to extend away from Manchester City. But what the Premier League want is they want the three at the top, nice and compact, taking points off each other. So I'm not sitting here being pro any club. It's just abundantly obvious that the Premier League is absolutely spent as an organisation. You need an independent commissioning now. And the simple fact of the matter is, it's not just about the entertainment and the money anymore. It's about us. You know, there was a statement the other day. I read a statement from the Bundesliga. It was a club in the Bundesliga. And they basically came out and said that without fans, without match-going fans, football's finished. And you know how sad it is that if every single football stadium shut their doors tomorrow, they would probably lose maximum 20 mil. Against the hundreds of millions they bring in through sponsorships and all sorts, through us, the life and soul of these football clubs, they're not bothered. We're literally dispensable to them, which is why you see so many clubs selling their tickets on travel sites now. You even see Everton doing it. It's a disgrace. And it's not because I don't want, you know, fans from different countries to take in the Premier League. Of course I do. You know, the Premier League is a global brand. But you can't tell me that, for example, and I use Liverpool as the example because I know that they don't have many local season ticket holders, but you're telling me out of the stadium that holds 62,000 seats, you're telling me like 10,000 are local season ticket holders and the rest are tourists. Football's finished. And I just don't agree with it. And I pray that Everton don't go that route. But the problem is, for Everton to keep up, they'll have to.
I think what you've hit the nail on the head there, what you're saying about the Premier League as an organisation. I think the Premier League as an organisation knows it's struggling. And you pointed this out to me the other week. Yeah, our friends across the park have had some decisions against them this season because, as you said to me on the phone, Premier League want that top three to battle it out week in, take points off each other, not give decisions to certain teams to keep it interesting up there. And then you talked about the relegation zone as well, with the points getting deducted off Everton and Forest, and teams down there are capable of taking points off each other. So it keeps it interesting at the top and interesting at the bottom. The Premier League is setting that up because they know, as an organisation, they are struggling. And I think they're doing this now because they want to make it interesting, because they know the government are ready to step in to run it. And I think now the Premier League as a whole, as a business, is shitting their pants. Second point I wanted to make, what you mentioned, which brought me on to it. I've said this a long time ago, Michael. When COVID was here, Premier League clubs paid all their season ticket holders their money back. Not one Premier League club went under. And I've said this so many times. I've said it to you privately. I've said it on here. Premier League clubs don't need the fans. We only make up a small portion of the income of them teams. They get that much money off sponsorship. They get that much money off the television. You know, Liverpool do it. I know for a fact, I'm a taxi driver in Liverpool when they've been at home. Guaranteed 9 times out of 10, midweek game, Sunday, after the Saturday game, I'll get a job to Manchester Airport. It'll be out of towners who have been in the game. That's because they make more money on selling it as a package. As a package. That's not just a pop at Liverpool, Man United.
We do it.
Yeah, we do it. We do it, but we've still got thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of local season ticket holders. Now, what I want to get to, for Everton to go down that route like Man United have and Liverpool have, would mean we've been successful. We would be a global organisation like Liverpool are, like Man United are, because they can sell them tickets as a package. Local Liverpool fans, and this isn't a pop at Liverpool fans at all, but this is why the locals struggle to get tickets, because they don't want you around the ground, because they know you're going to go for the pint, you go straight to the game and you'll go back to the pub. When the out-of-towners come in, whether they be Norwegians, Chinese, the Irish, first thing they do is they go into town or they go to the Cop End and go in the Liverpool shop and spend £110 on a shirt. That's where they're making their money. They don't make money off fans putting their asses on the seats week in, week out. They're not interested in the fans. It's a business now. It's a business. And if Everton go down that route like Liverpool have and Man United have, it would mean we've been successful. We're nowhere near the rate that Liverpool and Man United football clubs dish the tickets out abroad and sell them as the package. We're nowhere near them clubs because we haven't been as successful. In a way, I wish we were at that route, only for the simple fact of the matter, it'd mean we've been winning things. It'd mean we've been successful. But this is why the locals can't get tickets, because they sell more money as a package to bring the out-of-towners in. That's what the Premier League and these top 6 football clubs are interested in. That's all they're interested in. It's money. It's a business to them. And again, I'll reiterate, PSR, financial fair play, was made to make the top teams more successful and richer. And as I said, the other 14 teams, we just make the numbers up. We're not the pull of the Premier League. We're not the pull of the Premier League. Them top 4, 5, 6 teams are. They're not interested in us. And that's why these teams, the lesser teams, are getting battered by these points deductions. No team should get points deductions because it hurts the fans more than anybody else. The club's not bothered. The club will still exist when we've gone.
But the fact of the matter is, like we alluded to earlier, it's never going to affect the top 6 because their sponsorship deals are so big. Their revenue is never going to get to the point where they can't spend. You know, it's look, isn't it this season that Spurs?
Liverpool are on 80% of the games on television. Same as Man United, same as Man City.
It's not even that though. It's not even that. If you think using Spurs as the example, like Spurs are now the richest club in London. Right. And when you sit there and you think, right, so you're telling me they're bigger than the Emirates, which has got a deal with Emirates. They're bigger than Chelsea, who have sort of bulldozed their way in 20 odd years ago. When you sit there and you actually think Spurs commercially have absolutely nailed it over the last 15 years because they've gone from being very similar to Aston Villa, Everton, and Spurs. I would argue that they were the 3 teams that were just outside the top 4, and it was consistently the 3 of us sort of, you know, pushing each other, etc., etc. But when you genuinely sit there and you look at what they have done compared to Everton, and to a lesser, to a more extent, Villa, where did Everton get it wrong so commercially? Like, how did we get it so wrong? Well, I tell you what, we stopped selling the shirts in local shops. We started using companies like Phonetics, where we get 15% or whatever we earn from the shirts instead of dealing with it in-house ourselves. We had a board that didn't know what they were doing and went in X. We had then a billionaire coming who was the worst thing that's happened to our football club. You know, we could talk about points deductions and the mess that the Premier League is in to as much as we like. But Everton's revenue is lower than Crystal Palace's. And again, I'm not using that as a distraction or a dig at Palace. right? But I'm fairly confident I read that Everton's revenue is lower than Palace's. How can a club that has won the titles and all of the glory days that everyone older than me has seen, how can that be the state that we are in? Like, I don't. It's actually unbelievable to think how far Everton have actually fallen in the pecking order since the Premier League. We went from being one of the top five, the big five clubs of the Premier League, to being a number that makes up the numbers.
I can't even sit here and say Everton have stood still in that time, because we've gone backwards.
We have gone backwards.
It's down to the people who've run the club, and it's down to them people who haven't brought the right people in to run the commercial side of it. As you quite rightly say, the only place you can get Everton gear was in the Everton shop. You go to the airport or you go to shopping centres all around the country, every kit's there in every sports shop.
But we've missed opportunities recently. So let's go back to, you know, when Richarlison started playing as number 9 for Brazil. Why wasn't there Everton kits with Richarlison on the back of the shirt being sold in Brazil? And it sounds silly, right? But why wasn't that happening? Why wasn't it when we signed James Rodriguez, there wasn't Colombia shirts in Colombia, Everton shirts in Colombia with James Rodriguez on the back? You know, because people support people, you know, and these fans, a lot of them have clubs that they support in foreign leagues and follow the player. James Rodriguez, we had absolutely tons of Colombian people watching our shows, watching other content because they loved James Rodriguez. Did Everton touch on that commercially? No. How much of it did we use on Ancelotti? Where was the branding that Carlo Ancelotti was the Everton manager, you know, from Real Madrid and AC Milan and all of these big clubs? Where was that? It was nowhere, because Everton are absolutely shit at putting themselves on the map. And it frustrates me that they haven't got a commercial director that can look at the partnership deals, look at the strategic planning and go, right, I plan on growing our revenue from commercial deals by 200% in 3 years. And it's not like it's rocket science. It's not like it's rocket science. You just have to sell the brand, sell the shirts, sell the opportunity. And we didn't do it. And now we're left with a carcass of a football team that has gone through 10 managers in God knows how many years. And he's awful. You know, the team is the centre halves. The centre half was nothing. The other centre half was 1.5 mil. The right back, depending on who you play, should either have retired, be signed for 60 grand, or Nathan Patterson, who gets slapped around the face by our boss. Then you've got Mikalenko, who, you know, 20 million quid. He's absolutely great defensively, but going forward, I mean, I worry. Then you've got players in the midfield, James Garner, 12 million quid. You've got 3 signings, 3 transfers. You've then got wingers that aren't good enough. You've got a loan from Leeds, and I'm still seeing papers writing you need to sign him for 20 million. But I tell you what, right? Set me up a GoFundMe page. Everyone donate to it. I'll get the 20 million and I'll send him back to Leeds with the money and say, keep it, mate. We're all right. We then signed Beto on this deal where we don't pay anything for 12 months. But that's great, by the way, because PSR is absolutely toilet for next year because we've got to spend £30 million on it. But it's fine because we'll sell Onana and Branthwaite. Great, fantastic. Works out so sensibly, that, doesn't it? Build your team and then just dismantle it. Brilliant. That's great. Well done. Good business sense. And we've got Dwight McNeil. I mean, he probably just about paid his 15 million quid back. And then we signed, and the best one for me is Neil Maupay, because as fantastic as people might think he's doing at Brentford, he's not worth £12 million as long as I have oxygen in my lungs. And I'm telling you right now, it's a joke. You know, you've got managers that are coming out telling us we've got nothing in the academy. So we're not signing young kids that have got this fantastic opportunity in future. So what are we doing?
So basically, regardless, what you're saying is forget the points deduction. The club's a shit show anyway.
It doesn't matter. It sounds awful, John, right? And I made this statement, and I'll make this statement on air, and I think we should almost end it on it. The fact of the matter is, Everton are run atrociously, commercially, physically, mentally, orally, terrible, awful. They are run horrendous. And the problem you have with all of these little things is Everton just need to stay in the league and start again with new ownership that actually knows what they're doing. Now, with that 777, I don't know, but look, we've done nothing for 30 years. We've done nothing for 30 years. So all we need to do is beat Burnley, go to Bournemouth and get something, beat Brentford, beat Luton, or even just get a point at Luton and beat Forest. You get something out of those 5 games. Give me 11 points out of those 5 games, and Everton are a Premier League team. And then we get to witness it and feel it and be mortified by it and fucking devastated by it every single weekend next season too. I just love it. Up the toffees.
I'm going to ask you one question before we finish, and don't answer this tongue-in-cheek. Answer it
Probably.
like with a proper answer, right? Do you think Everton are the worst run club in the Premier League?
Yes. Yes.
The answer to that, John, is absolutely, categorically yes. And I'll go further than that. There's only one club in the football pyramid that is run worse than Everton, and that is Reading. Apart from that, I don't know anyone who's as bad as we are.
So basically, the worst run club in the country, apart from Reading,
who have got mega issues.
I'm sad, you might find them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that just puts the nail in the coffin, really, doesn't it? That just nails it, doesn't it? After everything we've spoke about, forget the point deduction. Forget what we've spoke about since the points deduction. We're just shocking.
But it's fine, John, because people look up to Everton's board and they go, what would Everton do? I'll tell you what Everton would do. I'll tell you what Everton would do. They'd shit the bed and leave the sheet on the mattress and then lie in it. That's what they do.
When you're watching this video, folks, when you come to the end of it, I hope you're not eating your tea. Right, I think we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Have you got anything else to add? Apart from shit? No.
No. I sound like you.
Yes, yeah. Right, folks, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, hit the like, the subscribe button. Obviously, I'm expecting something to happen this week regarding the takeover. I don't know why. I've heard nothing. I've just got a feeling. As soon as something does come out, we will be back with a video for that. If anything else happens, we will be back for the video. If not, it will be the match preview only for Bournemouth a week Saturday.
Yeah, and if you have stayed long enough to witness John's new fringe, make sure you leave a comment in the bits. All right.
At least I can be asked doing something with me every time you come in here. It looks like you just got out of bed. And your hairline, Jesus. Where did your hair going?
Mate, I'm not.
Jesus, you've got a forehead bigger than Ant or Deck, whoever it is.
I feel like, what was his name? Gervinho, that used to play for Arsenal. His hair used to start here.
You are struggling hair-wise, aren't you?
It's all that stress, mate.
Fucking hell, I should be baldy then. Right, folks, we're going to leave it there. Up the toffees, and we will be back soon with another video on the Blue Boys Network. Don't forget, hit like, subscribe. See you soon.
And preferably hit John first.